Lemon Perfect, we coach a team and we're in a street fight, right? We're competitive here. We are a scoreboard first business. And it's for us, how are we the last team standing? How do we get there? How do we go cut down the nets? And that for us is number one in the flavor enhanced water category by dollar share, right? That's our goal. That's where we want to go. And I think the reason why we've been successful early on is that we're very, very competitive. We've got great fire and we believe in what we're building.
Welcome to Dr. Patty Ann Podcast. And my episode today is for you. If you've ever had a liquid drink in your life, water, coffee, maybe wine. If you've drank liquids, this podcast is for you. So before I go any further, I know you're going to love this episode. I know you're going to love this podcast. So make sure you like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. So today I was just chatting with my guest and I found out for all my listeners, because you all know I'm originally from the Northeast, that this man was actually my neighbor when I was in Connecticut raising my kids for 30 years. So rather than me tell you about him without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to, and I said I'm going to get it right, Yanni Hufnagel. Correct, Yanni?
Yanni Hufnagel. Yes, Dr. Patty Ann. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here and looking very forward to the conversation.
All right. So this is great. So I didn't tell you much about Yanni and his business, but if you're listening, and I know most people are hearing, but if you happen to be listening, I want you to look at his office because his office looks like it's painted yellow. And Yanni is the founder and CEO of the Lemon Perfect Company. However, here's his crazy story, if I can use poetic license, Yanni.
Please.
He was a basketball coach before he went into the beverage industry. So before you tell us about that transition, which I cannot wait to hear, I have a question I'd like to ask you. The question is, what's an experience, Yanni, that happened to you that people don't know about, can't read about, can't Google your name and find out about, can't listen to any podcast and discover it? Okay. So an experience that has happened to you that most, if not all people don't know about that has influenced the success you are and the man you are today.
It's a great question. And, I think I'll answer it in a little bit of a circular way. I've been influenced by great leaders. I don't know if there's any one moment that I would point to that has changed it for me. I think I've just been incredibly influenced by wonderful people, and largely through the lens of basketball or coaching college basketball. I worked for Jeff Capel when I was a graduate assistant at Oklahoma. Then I worked for Tommy Amaker when I was at Harvard, Kevin Stallings at Vanderbilt, Konzo Martin at Cal, Eric Musselman at Nevada. And I was able to take bits and pieces of their leadership and how they coached and how they won and how they treated people. And now I take the best of that entire ecosystem and bring it to Lemon Perfect every day. And through that, then I get to watch these moments of joy here unfold at Lemon Perfect when I see people drink the product and have this incredible reaction to the experience.
Okay, Yanni. Okay, that's great. And I get how you've gotten around. But usually that influence is great. But usually there's something that happened to us that either influences a change in trajectory. Like I would imagine when you were growing up, as you told me, in Scarsdale, New York, you did not think, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to find a drink company. I just don't think that was what you thought. I don't think that's what your family thought. I don't think that's what your neighbors thought. Okay. So usually that something has happened to us in our lives that changed the course of our lives. And sometimes sometimes it's very obvious to us. And other times we don't realize it until somebody like me asks the question.
Yeah. I think certainly, I started at Penn State. I played lacrosse at Penn State. I was recruited to play lacrosse at Penn State from Scarsdale High School.
Where'd you go to high school? Did you go to Scarsdale High School?
Scarsdale High School. And played lacrosse.
Down those mean streets of Scarsdale, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We're towards the end of our winter season, practice season, and we're outside. It's probably 10 degrees outside, and I had a really bad practice. And I went upstairs to my dorm room, and I said, I got to get out of here. I got to get out. I can't. I got
because of a bad practice.
One bad practice, snowing, this, that. I was getting yelled at, and in the middle of the night, I applied to Cornell and I applied to Penn, where I had friends, and didn't think much about it. Submitted the applications. About a month later, Cornell emailed and said, can you come and do an on-campus interview? Penn did not offer me the same on-campus interview. So I had an opportunity to do what I do in a room. And somehow I sold the admissions office in that 30 minutes. And about a month later, I got an email. Congratulations, you've been accepted to Cornell. I mean, that was the story. And I was having a real, 3 days later, I forgot about. I mean, we had a great season, and I was ready to go to my sophomore year, and then, and then I get into Cornell, and that certainly changed the course and direction of my journey, my life. I mean, my network. I was ready to play lacrosse at Cornell when I got on campus in the fall, and I'm in the varsity weight room, and
you're a sophomore now. You said
sophomore. And I run into
transferred from Penn State to Cornell. Transferred from Penn State to Cornell. Okay.
And I'm in the varsity weight room. And I run into one of the assistant basketball coaches, Mike Burden. And I got cut from my varsity basketball team when I was in high school. I was the last cut my junior year. And I walked into the principal's office later that day. And he was still there. It was after hours. And I said, you broadcast Cable 72, which was the local access TV network in Scarsdale. They broadcast the football games with the student team. I said, can we do the same for basketball? And a week later they said, okay, great. So we'll do basketball. So I broadcast the games on the local access TV network in high school for our basketball games. And so I've always, when I was 7 years old, there were these little starting lineup figurines, and I was under the covers, doing 5-on-5, coaching. So it's always been in my blood. Right. And I got to talking with Coach Burden, the assistant basketball coach for the team, for the men's basketball team. And he said, my God, you've got such a passion for basketball. Your energy's inflammable. Like you should come be a student manager for us. And a week later, I was mopping sweat off the floor. So
this was where now? This was
Cornell.
Where?
Yeah, Cornell.
At Cornell. Okay.
And so I ended up, not playing lacrosse, and I ended up working for the basketball team. And that's how this whole, right. I mean, basketball has fueled Lemon Perfect in a magnificent way, that network. And if I don't transfer from Penn State to Cornell, which is not that well documented, none of this ever happens. So
Got it.
that's a story.
Okay, so that's great. So you graduated from Cornell, and you wanted to be what did you want to do? Because I have a cousin that played professional basketball abroad, and he coaches now in one of the state schools in New York, and he always wanted to coach basketball.
Wow.
But D3. Um, what did you do? Did you graduate from school? I mean, you're coming from Cornell, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think too many
I didn't
people
really
major
know
in
what,
basketball
honestly,
coaching.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was all over the place. I took the LSAT. I did not do
When you
well on
don't
the
know what you
LSAT.
want to do, when you
It,
don't know what you want to be when you grow up, you go to law school, right?
yeah, it's exactly. I think that's what my mom wanted. That's for sure. And so I studied for the LSAT, took the LSAT, did not do well on the LSAT. Then it was go work on a credit desk, and I made it to the last round of Wall Street. I made it to the last round of interviews at a particular bank. And in the first round of interviews, the question, the math question, right, was they brought in the math guy, right, and the math guy asked me, okay, this was in true story. This was in March of my last year at Cornell, and
which was what year was that, Yanni?
2006.
Ballpark.
And
okay, so before the crash, when people still would give their right on to be on Wall Street,
no question.
It's not that
I mean,
way
it was
yeah.
a as bullish an environment as there's been. And he asked me, he said, so there's this thing called the NCAA basketball tournament coming up. And this was before
March Madness.
That's right. This was before they added extra games. The first four is what they call it. So at the time, it was 64 teams. And he said, you have 64 teams, and there are subsequent rounds, right, to get to a champion. Mm-hmm. He said, starting with 64 teams, how many games are played in the tournament to get to a national champion? And I looked up at the ceiling as if I was doing the arithmetic in my head. And I said 63. He said, my God, no one's ever answered that question so fast before. So they brought me back in a week later.
Because you knew it had nothing to do with the math,
answer,
right?
of course. Of course. Yeah. And so
they thought they had a genius.
They thought they had I think more than a genius. I think they thought that they had someone that could sell and someone that could do, that could do the arithmetic, right, at a high level. And then they put me in front of the whiteboard with a dry erase marker a week later with a larger team. And that could not have gone worse. I was sweating through my jacket. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I did not get the job. Yeah, I did not get the job. So school ended, and I was a bar back at Down the Hatch in New York. That was my first job.
Did you actually do you know that bar? Did you care? Because at the time when you graduated, that was the ticket. Like when my kids graduated, like, oh, go to Wall Street. Thank God they said no. But at the time that you thought that was the ticket to the good life. And you're coming from Scarsdale. For the listeners, that's a suburb of New York. Half of Scarsdale, or not 3/4, works on Wall Street, I'm sure.
Listen, I think anytime that you face rejection, there's heartache and it's a moment of frustration, despair. And I think my whole life, you just get up off the mat and you figure out what's next. I mean, you gotta, and so I think in my heart. So I'm
not sure what that answer was.
I think in my heart, I think in my heart, I was probably relieved that I didn't put myself in a situation where I couldn't do the job. That would have been limiting, right? Being behind a desk and looking at, and trading, bonds probably wouldn't have been the best use of my skill set. So then it gave me a chance to take a breath and figure out what I wanted to do. And that year I lived with 3 other friends from my fraternity house at Cornell in Manhattan and in Chelsea. It was a rich experience. I was connected through, I did an internship with the New Jersey Nets the summer before in their basketball operations department. And I was connected to Coach Capel, who was then the head coach at Oklahoma. through the video coordinator at the Nets, Ryan Kruger, and I went out there, I interviewed, and on the way back to the airport, Coach Capel offered me the job as the GA, and that's how this whole thing started. So
what did GA stand for?
Graduate assistant coach, graduate assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got my master's in higher education, and had just a 2007, 2008, 2009. That was as much fun and as rewarding an experience as I've ever had in my life. Great people.
Okay, so now you're a New York boy and you go to Oklahoma. That must have been like culture shock.
I packed up my Volkswagen Jetta and from 148 Bright Avenue in Scarsdale, New York, with a couple of bags and a dream. And
garbage bags, I bet, right? The big black garbage bag.
You know what? I think I remember it somehow I played hockey when I was like 9 and 10 years old, and we had one of those big hockey duffel bags. Yeah. And so that's what I took. I think the journey to unfamiliar places began then, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, look, when you grow up in Scarsdale or Westchester or places like you see a lot, but you don't see it all, right? You don't.
Well, you see a lot, but it's quite provincial, right? For the listeners, Westchester's considered an affluent suburb of New York. So it's driven by Wall Street. You have a lot of professionals, high power attorneys, the top physicians. So to what Yanni is saying is you see a lot of luxury, and you're exposed to a lot, and the educational system is incredible, but it is quite provincial insofar as it can narrow prism, I think is what you're saying, right?
No question. And you're traveling to nice places and all of that. You have friends that are taking you to nice places. You have spring break at Acapulco, right? Like it's
right.
It's
skiing at Vail.
We didn't get to Vail, but yes, Steamboat Springs, so
close enough.
Close enough. And then I will tell you this. I've now been, to 49 states, everyone but Hawaii. I have seen everything. I've traveled to the most interesting places, the broadest range of socioeconomics, and I've been able to, I think have experiences that most never have a chance to have, right? In terms of where I've been, who I've interacted with, and the richness of those relationships. But yes, I mean, imagine this: you go from Scarsdale, New York, to Norman, Oklahoma, and that was the beginning of all of this. And
my hunch is it almost didn't. And correct me if I'm wrong. It almost didn't matter where you were because you so immersed yourself in the coaching and the job that even if you were in New York, you weren't going out partying as much as you were working and learning your skill set.
For sure. And look, it was an interesting, it was an interesting role for me because I'm 24 years old. I'm a graduate assistant. I'm in school, right? I'm a coach. At the same time, I'm almost the age of the players. And so I think, I candidly straddle the line sometimes, right? Between player and coach. But I worked my tail off. I mean, I slept in the office many nights. There was an incredible coaching staff around me. And it's amazing. That was 16 years ago. And I was just at Pittsburgh to watch practice with Coach Capel, who's now the head basketball coach at Pitt. Our starting point guard, Austin Johnson, just opened a meat and cheese shop in Oklahoma, and he carries Lemon Perfect. Blake and Taylor Griffin, who are on that team, are investors in Lemon Perfect. Tony Crocker, I just heard from him on Instagram a couple of weeks ago. His family loves the product. His kids love the product. So again, that was the launch pad. Like that,
Right.
getting in the car.
So let me ask a question. Hang on. So let me ask a question. So how long did you stay at Oklahoma?
2 years.
And then did you move with the coach? Like take us along the trajectory. And did you love it? And did you love it?
Loved every second of it. So, so then, when you're a graduate assistant, then you need to go find a job, right? I mean, that's
right.
You need to go find a coaching job. And somehow, some way, I got interviews at Harvard and Dartmouth. This is another good story.
The graduate school, an MBA or what?
No. So in the Ivy League at the time, the third assistant was a volunteer spot. You made money through working summer camp, even another job. Okay. And I was fortunate enough that my mom and dad said, if you can get this opportunity, we will support you for a year or 2 years. Right. And so I got interviews at Dartmouth and at Harvard. And they were actually on back-to-back days. And I went up to Dartmouth and I interviewed, and I thought it went really well.
Dartmouth is New Hampshire. For anybody that doesn't know.
Hanover, New Hampshire. My brother went there. I was familiar with the campus. And it went really well. His name was Coach Dunn. And the next day, I went down to Harvard and interviewed with Tommy Amaker and the coaching staff there. And, I just remember that like it was yesterday. I was walking to the T stop, Cambridge or Harvard Square. And I like pumped my fist. I was like, let's go. And I got on the T and I went to go see a friend. Like, I don't think the Harvard interview could have gone better. And Coach Amaker was looking for what we call in basketball circles, like a grinder, like someone who I think he was just looking for someone who was organized, who, was going to work his tail off, be a team guy. He didn't care about playing experience. Got a good recommendation from Coach Capel, who played for Coach Amaker when Coach was an assistant at Duke. And I waited and I waited and I waited weeks. And then Dartmouth called and I didn't get the job. Coach Dunn called and said, we're going in a different direction. And if Dartmouth offered me the job first, I was going to Dartmouth. And Dartmouth, they've not had a proud history in men's basketball.
Okay.
They were at the bottom of the Ivy League. Who knows what could have been, right?
They missed it. You know what? They missed their opportunity.
And then a week later, Coach Amaker calls. He says, let's rock and roll. And we had a magnificent run. I was there for 4 years. My first 2 as the unpaid volunteer, and then Coach Blakeney left, and I was promoted, and we won 90 games in 4 years, and recruited fantastic players. I was fortunate that Coach Amaker, he had already been there for 2 years with a wonderful coaching staff, Will Wade, Brian DiStefano, and Kenny Blakeney, who's now the head coach at Howard. Will was the head coach at LSU, and now is the head coach at McNeese State, doing a great job. And so I was able to come into a good situation. But we ended up, in my 4 years, we ended up going to the NCAA tournament twice. And my last year, we beat New Mexico in the first round of the NCAA tournament, Salt Lake. And until we figure out how to climb the mountain here, that is going to be the number one moment of my professional journey.
Okay. So tell us what, and people don't realize how much is involved with being a coach, at any level. So what were the 1 to 3 main takeaways that you learned about human behavior and human motivation and human performance, because I'm that kind of expert. What is it that you learned coaching or from watching these coaches that now translates to your success with the Lemon Perfect company?
A couple things. You have to be really authentic. You have to believe in what you're building, what you're selling, right? Like, and that comes from the heart. You have to be really authentic. In recruiting, I always tried to put myself in a position where I was selling our head coach and selling my level of commitment to helping that high school player, ultimately realize their dreams on the court. And it was, how do we put this recruit in a position where they can't say no? You've recruited them so hard, you've laid it out in the line. And sometimes I was limited by the places that I was, right? I mean, if you're at Harvard, winning a recruiting battle versus Stanford or versus Duke is it's challenging at best.
Yeah.
Right. If you're at Vanderbilt, winning a recruiting battle versus Kentucky, right, in the SEC. If you're
at Tennessee,
or Tennessee, sure. At Cal,
come on, you got to get UConn in there. You got
Well, now
they've always, especially with Dan Hurley now.
No, and he's done a wonderful job. If you're at Cal, you have to beat UCLA, you have to beat USC, you have to beat Arizona, and then at Nevada, you have to go beat San Diego State, or so you're always limited sometimes. But for the first time now, I feel like we've got the best story to sell here at Lemon Perfect versus our competition versus the category, and so that's that gives us a different runway. But I again, to go back to your question, Patty Ann, it's you got to be authentic, and you have to have a great story to sell. Okay, that's incredibly important. And
so what was good?
And then where are you trying to go? Right, like in college basketball,
the vision. You have to have the vision.
Yeah, there's got to be vision. It's well, let's go win a league championship. Let's go, make the Final Four. Let's go win a national championship together. And Lemon Perfect, we coach a team, and this is we're in a street fight, right? We're competitive here. We are a scoreboard first business. And it's for us, how are we the last team standing? How do we get there? How do we go cut down the nets? Right. And that for us is number one in the flavor enhanced water category by dollar share. Right. That's our goal. That's where we want to go. So it's vitamin water in that spot today. And they've got great distribution. And they've been around for 20 plus years. And our vision is, how do we get there? What do we do every day? How do we build a team to get there? And we feel like we're on our way. But we coach a team. Our leadership team is incredible. I've hired wonderful assistant coaches. And we've got an incredible group of players. And we're having fun. And I think the reason why we've been successful early on is that we're very, very competitive. We've got great fire, and we believe in what we're building.
Great. Okay. So, and I think you said it perfectly, right? Authentic passion, vision, and surround yourself with the best. Right. I mean, that's the winning formula no matter what you're doing. All right. So what was your last coaching experience? Well, hang on a second. How did your parents feel about you going from coaching basketball and then going from coaching basketball to, I want to start a company, right? This is before they knew it was going to take off.
In a lot of ways, I think they were relieved because I went up, down, left, and right recruiting. I took every red eye flight. I would drive through the night. I got after it. And I think there was some relief that I would live a life with more balance. I don't think they understood what entrepreneurship is all about, right? There has been no better balance over the last
Wait a minute.
years.
Wait a minute. When you work for yourself, you have the choice. You can work any 25 hours in the day you want. That's what we do as entrepreneurs, right?
That's a great listen. That's very well said. But the burden, right?
Yeah.
I think if I was in this chair when I was an assistant basketball coach, I would have been such a better assistant. No one understands the pressure and the burden of being in this chair, of running the team, of running the organization, of having to make the last decision. And the stakes were big in college basketball. The stakes are massive now.
Yeah.
Because
sure. So much money. There's so much money.
And for me, Dr. Patty Ann, it's the math, the money is one bucket.
No, it's not the money for the coaches, except at the highest level, but endorsements and TV, and it's almost out of control.
Correct. It's just for Lemon Perfect, winning in my mind looks a lot of different ways, right? There's winning by doing what I just articulated, being the number one brand in the flavor enhanced water category by dollar share at some point. There's winning by finding liquidity for our investors, right? Mm-hmm. We're looking for big returns for our investors over time. There's the 90 plus people that we have at Lemon Perfect that bleed yellow every day, right? Mm-hmm. That I want to win for, help change, their financial lives, make this the best professional experience of their careers. And then more than all of that, we have the chance to make America a healthier place by disrupting the way that people drink water everywhere, right? And that might be my biggest burden of all, because you get one shot to go build this thing. And we believe that we've got a product that can change the way that people drink water. And okay, so yeah.
Yeah, I got that. And almost every CEO I know articulates something similar to what you said, right? Especially the responsibility of the people that work with you, for sure. So what was your last coaching gig? How did that end? And what's the story behind the Lemon Perfect company?
It's a great question. So my last year coaching, I was at the University of Nevada in Reno. And
okay.
And
it's hopping out there now.
Reno
all the sports teams moving out there.
I
have some coaching clients out there.
Yeah, the state of Nevada is on fire. I mean, it's a
well, because of this.
Yeah,
if California ever decides to stop taxing people to death, that's a different conversation.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime too soon. But but anyway, so I was on a recruiting trip to Santa Rosa Junior College. And from Reno to Santa Rosa, you go through at the end of the trip through Petaluma. I am a big coffee drinker, black coffee. I saw a Starbucks on the side of the road. I stopped. I got a nice coffee. And out of the corner of my eye in that strip mall, there was a GNC-like sports supplement store called Max Nutrition. I walked in to get a couple of protein bars. It was a doubleheader. And the man working behind the register, I was wearing a quarter zip just like this. It said Nevada basketball. He said, "Do you work for the team?" I said, "Yes, I'm an assistant coach." He said, "No way. My dream is to be a strength and conditioning coach for an NBA basketball team." And his name was Matt. Business cards were still a thing at the time, right? This is 2017. And I said, "If I can ever be helpful, here's my card. Send me an email, text me. And I'd love to make any connections, build any bridges that I can." About a month later, he emails me a draft of a book that he was working on called The Ketogenic Diet with a friend. And it was all marked up. It was a PDF, red ink, black ink, green ink. And this was before keto was in the psychology of the American consumer, really, just before it had its moment. And in the back of Matt's book were all these sample meal plans, and every day started by drinking organic lemon. And I was searching at the time for some structured diet training program. And I said, "Matt, I'm in. Let's go. A through Z." And lemon water in the morning became a part of my daily routine. I hated it, right? There's one Whole Foods in Reno, buy organic lemons, cut the lemons, squeeze the lemon, juice all over, bland taste. I threw my hands up in the air most mornings. I stuck with it. I ended up getting in great shape by the end of the year. And we're getting ready for the NCAA tournament. I'm in the video room with the team. And Coach Musselman's wife, her sister was on the field marketing team at Buy, which is now one of our biggest competitors.
By BAI.
BAI. So we were all drinking the product. It had, good flavor. It was very innovative in the category at the time. Little did I know this was right before their big transaction with KDP. And I just said, hold on. I hate the taste of lemon water. I know it's good for me. Can I make it taste good? And that was the seed of the journey. I didn't run out of the locker room and say, I'm going to start a beverage brand, right? The season ended. We lost to Iowa State in the first round of the NCAA tournament in Milwaukee. I'm in Los Angeles having lunch with a friend who was in consumer venture. And I said, John, what do you think about this idea? And he said, I love it. Anything that you can build that can capture a piece of someone's daily routine, what they do in the morning when they first get up, what they do at night when they go to sleep, or any point in between, you can build a business around. And remember, all I knew was lemon water in the morning. Our first package said Jumpstart on the side, right? I said, let's go in the morning. And that night from John's couch in Santa Monica, I Googled how to start a beverage company. And here we are. That's how it all started. The early years were pain-filled, but I surrounded myself with really good people from the start. And
how'd you know who was a good person? Like a good person and a good business person? Because that's one of the most difficult decisions.
Hiring people or putting the right people around you is challenging, and you don't always get it right. You need to get the big decisions right. And I think intuition, right? I mean, gut feel. I mean, that's so much of the journey of life is just trusting your gut, and you're not always going to get it right. But I had surrounded myself with I through all my coaching interactions, I think I got a feel for how to build brand, who do you surround yourself with. And I taught myself over the last 6.5 years, we joke around. We call it that I've got my PhD in beverage and my PhD in venture capital and a lot of PhDs. But again, it's all about telling story, right? Mm-hmm. It's about telling story and building team. And whether it's telling story to sell Lemon Perfect to retailers or distributors or raising capital, we've been very fortunate that we not only have a great story to tell, but that I've been able to deliver the story in a good way. And storytelling is, I think, for entrepreneurs, as important a skill as there is. Your product, a good product, that's table stakes. What do you do with it, right?
So let me ask you a question. When did you know you were in business?
Well, I registered the domain name on June 13th, 2017.
No. I don't mean, no.
When did I feel like we had something?
And okay, this is going to work. This is going to fly. Yeah. I don't mean registering the LLC and all the I'm talking about plenty of startups do that and they fizzle out.
Most.
Correct.
So we launched the brand in Southern California. The idea was
place to be. Yeah.
I just felt like it was ground zero for brands in the natural channel, which is where we started, right? So you have a group of grocery stores, natural channel grocery stores, where if you have a good product, you can get your start there. And so Erewhon and Bristol Farms and Lazy Acres and Mothers and Lassens and Gelson's, kind of that group in Southern California. And one of my mentors, who's now one of our largest investors, Dan Morad, one of the and I think this goes for a lot of businesses, certainly consumer brands, you got to be a mile deep and an inch wide to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we were for the first year. And we just focused on winning in a core group of retailers
Mm-hmm.
and then leveraging that data to go other places. But Dr. Patty Ann, I was obsessive about winning in Erewhon and winning in Lazy Acres and winning in Bristol Farms. And we would demo there and I would run around those stores and I would start to walk in to stores and there would be blown out shelves. And then I would start to see people, these groceries, they have little seating areas next to the hot
Mm-hmm.
food. And I would start to see people drinking Lemon Perfect. We call it in the wild, right? And so I would tell you within weeks of launching Lemon Perfect, I felt like, my God, we've got product market fit. We've got something that has big audience. And that has been foundationally something that we've hung our hat on from day one is the
Mm-hmm.
size of our TAM, big TAM, right? We call it this conceptually, flavor knows no boundaries, right? Flavor knows no boundaries. Now we get to deliver this flavor experience, this elevated drink experience in a way that's also good for you. And so I would tell you, I knew we had product market fit very early on from the time that we started selling the product. I said, my God, there's something here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I would tell you that I didn't feel like, I always felt like we're going to win. I've never been more confident in our story than I am today. We've raised, we've raised almost $100 million. We have all the cash runway that we need to profitability. We've proven the concept across multiple channels of trade. So listen, but the first aha moment was back in Southern California in 2018 when you just had this incredible fanfare for the product itself.
Mm-hmm. Are you the sole the sole founder? Do you have a co-founder?
Just me, but
Just you.
and I would listen. Everyone is wired differently.
Mm-hmm.
I could never do this with a co-founder because
Mm-hmm.
once
Most
you
people don't
start,
do it well.
once you start adding people, they become your co-founders in a way, right? And building a beverage business is very dilutive. So if there was me and another person, everything would be chopped in half, right? So and again, it's not only about that, it's just the speed that you can make decisions, right, is always slowed if you have,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, if you have 2 people or 3 people or 4 people.
You're
For
right.
me,
You're
it's,
absolutely right.
we can make fast decisions and then you start adding smart people very early on. They were all fractional resources, but they kind of became like my co-founders, right? Our fractional finance, lead, he was like a co-founder. Dan Morad on the sales side, like a co-founder. Robert Alschuler on the supply chain side, like a co-founder, right? Frank Collective, our agency at the beginning, that team, like co-founder. And so I had the support. And then you start hiring full-time people. And, now we have a president who's, like my 1A and I have help around me. So it's just, but you got to be able to have the perseverance, to get to the point where you start to surround yourself with people that can help you grow it.
Yeah.
But, and then I would tell you, you have to have the work capacity to do the job of 2 people or to do the job of 3 people, which, fortunately I've been able to do.
Great. Great. Okay. I could talk to you forever, but I want to respect your time. But I want to ask you a question. Well, maybe 2 or 3 more questions.
Please.
Then I want you to unabashedly promote yourself. Okay. Here's my question. Imagine you have a box in front of you, a huge box, Yanni, and everything in your life that you've ever lost is in that box. What's the first thing you would reach for to take out and why?
I'd love to tell you it's a winning lottery ticket. You know,
Did you ever have one?
it's a good question. That's a very, very good question. Yeah, you might have me on this one. That puts me on the hot seat a little bit. What is something that I've lost that I would love to have again? You know, I for a very brief period of time when I was bar backing in New York, and I didn't mention this at the top. My friend from Cornell and we tried to start, I think the simplest way of explaining it would be a Yelp for college students, right? Yelp meets Rate My Professors, right? Yeah. And it was back in the Web 1.0 era. There was no iPhone, right? This is 2005, 2006.
The Stone Age, no iPhone.
Stone Ages, right? And I mean, Blackberries were the thing, right?
Yeah.
And we created this concept that was called Loud Campus. And we loved the name. We got some early traction. I was taking all the money I was making bar backing and putting it into the dev work and the design work. And we launched the brand. We were at all the Ivy League schools, and it ended up 5 or 6 months later, it just didn't work, right? It just didn't work. But we had a big launch party, and we had t-shirts that said Loud Campus. And for 15 years, I had a framed t-shirt, a framed Loud Campus t-shirt. And then somehow when I moved from California, and I was always in my office or in my apartment. And somehow when I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta, it got lost in the move. And it was always, in this thing, it was always it was a reminder. One, the friend that I did that with is our largest investor now. So there was part of that for me, but that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And I was always able to look up at it with some laughs and some, my God, here we are. There are probably 100 of other things that I've lost over time, but that's one that I wish I had. There's been mementos and things. But, Dr. Petty, and I've also, I live a very minimalist life. You wouldn't find a book in my apartment, right? There are not a lot of pictures on the walls. I've got one picture in my office, which is the first case of Lemon Perfect that ever came off the line. I'm very minimalist by nature, decluttered, if you will. I've got 3 boxes of things at my dad's house, 3 trunks of my childhood through basketball possessions. And I have to tell you, I 2 years ago, I hadn't opened those boxes since I started the Lemon Perfect journey. And I opened up the first box and I started looking inside and I couldn't do it. I walked out, I started crying. I couldn't do it. So
no, but one day, why? Because why?
I don't know. I guess in that moment, it's like you only have so much time, right? And as great as this journey is, and as amazing as the people that I've met, time waits on no man or woman. And, we're doing something so special. I don't know if I would give this up to go back to being 17 again, but I probably would. And I guess, just looking through years of experience in look down and you see my 5th grade report card and you see a letter that Coach Martin wrote to me when I was at Cal that said future head coach. And it's like everything in one moment. And that was hard. And you know what? Lemon Perfect's in a different place. So maybe I go back and try it again. There was a letter in there that I wrote to myself in 8th grade at Horace Mann. I went to private school in 8th grade. And at the end of that year, they had you write a letter to yourself, and you were supposed to open it on the day that you graduated. And I never opened it. And I saw that envelope in that box, right? So maybe that was what got me. And then, I said, I'm going to open it, when I get married. I'm going to open it when it just keeps on. I hope I open it at some point.
What do you, I'll use this word and you can correct me. What are you afraid you'll find?
I'm not afraid I'll find anything. I think you just want to make sure that you live a life well-traveled. And that, for instance, I think in that letter, I think it was all about seizing the moment and capitalizing on everything. And, you just hope that you can live up to that and touch people. And, I'm very fortunate that, I've met a lot of people on the journey, and I've got incredible relationships. And that's really what life is all about, right? It's not about, the money. It's about the relationships.
I think you're incredibly,
I
think you're incredibly hard on yourself. Incredibly hard on yourself. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, listen, it's a pretty cool thing that we've sold 50 million bottles of Lemon Perfect, right? And delivering that joy in every sip. That's as good as it gets, right?
Good.
So,
okay, let me ask you one more question. I think this will be easier for you. What's the one song you can't live without?
I don't know. There's a lot. There's a song that they play at the end of the NCAA tournament on Monday night after the national championship game. It's called One Shining Moment. And, it goes, the ball is tipped and there you are. It just talks about, doing your best, competing. It's a very motivational song to me. We had our first ever annual meeting, and, we did a montage of the year's pictures at the end, and we played One Shining Moment. So when I need a little pump up, when I want to, jump up around, and that's the song, One Shining Moment by Luther Vandross. So it's a great song.
Great. Okay, so Yanni, unabashedly promote yourself, your company, where people can go to learn more about you, the business. Go.
Lemonperfect.com is a great place to start. Our Amazon presence is terrific. So either of those two places, right? Search Lemon Perfect in Amazon or visit lemonperfect.com. We're available in all 50 states, across several retailers. We have a store locator on our website. I would encourage you to go try the product. We're available now in the club channel at Costco and Sam's Club and BJ's, national retailers like Publix and Albertsons and Kroger, natural channel stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts, convenience retail channels, Wawa and Sheetz and Come and Go and Quick Trip. So the grocery, the drug channel like CVS. So national distribution, and go try the product. You'll never drink water the same way again. Delicious, refreshing, zero sugar, half a squeezed organic lemon in every bottle. It truly is healthy hydration that tastes wonderful. So thank you, Dr. Patty Ann, for having me on. I can't wait to have your listeners dive in to the world of Lemon Perfect.
This is great. Thank you, Yanni. This is such an incredible story. You have to write a book one day, You do know that. As if you have nothing else to do with your time. All right.
That has been a common request, and I will tell you, the chapters will be unbelievably fascinating. But the story is certainly yet to be finished, and there are many more chapters to go.
Well, it'll be a sequel or a trilogy, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. All right. Thank you so much. And that concludes today's episode of Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. I encourage you to go out and purchase. Go ahead, Yanni.
Lemon Perfect on either lemonperfect.com or on Amazon.
Absolutely. And we all know that lemon is so healthy for you. And I cannot wait to get your feedback so you can tell us how much you love the product. And that concludes today's episode. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and go out and purchase the Lemon Perfect product. And until next time, be well.